Alright, so this pick a reflection reading is going to be on what does your inner self feel about the level of attentiveness you are giving to yourself. Now, I want to first tell you about why I brought this reading out. And it's because I have been working to reprogram my attachment style. And I understand that at a very core level, programmed in me from a very young age, the want to look outside myself for certain comforts was ingrained. And I have addressed various layers and levels of this over the many years I've been looking at this. But finally I got to this place where it feels like I'm about there, like it feels like it's much easier now to be attentive to myself in a way that feels fulfilling and whole and right. And in the past, it was very difficult because even if I was attending to myself, something would pull me away, or I would use coping mechanisms for certain comforts. And now, instead of doing those things, which are really distractions and dependencies on outside things, I'm taking away the need to do those things by attending to even those parts of myself that I haven't yet been with. Okay? So it's been really nice. It feels good. It is different. There are moments where it's like, for the first time in years, I'm feeling myself like in moments of like, am I bored right now? And then, I have to like bring myself into that moment of the inner me, the inner child me, who may have felt bored and who actually has been doing lots of things to avoid the feeling of bored. And then instead I'm just like, okay, yeah, it's okay to be with myself in the stillness. And it doesn't mean boredom. It means that I'm present. So it feels really nice. I like that I'm doing it because I know it's the right thing to do. And I decided to check in with myself through my oracle. And I asked, what does my inner self feel about the level of attentiveness my outer self is giving now? So this is my reading that I got. And I wanted to start with this because I just wanted to show in a way that, says like I'm going through this too, and I'm going to use these two as the choices after. So my inner self is feeling like, yes, we're on a new path now. I also went for a walk just now, so my inner self is thankful for the movement that I'm taking my body through, and my inner self has been longing for this, and it's recognizing that, and that longing is still ongoing. And also I'm feeling creative. Like there are these moments where I'm like, oh, I just feel like kind of expressing myself, and I look at all these modalities I have and like, what will I do next? And then this Gemini, I believe, is a call from my inner self for more communication. I think my inner self would like to hear more affirmations and sort of self-talk, because I don't do a lot of that. My brain, my inner world has in the past been a lot about analysis, not really beating myself up too much, and not really talking myself up too much, just analyzing things. And now I think my inner self would like to have some of those affirmations and cheerleading. And recognizing that we have options, which is a nice feeling. Like when I said, what will I do with my creativity? Like that inner urge has so many outlets now that I'm here to be present with it. It can express itself in so many ways, and that's a really nice feeling. My inner self is feeling optimistic, and Constantia is an asteroid that signifies commitment. So my inner self is convinced of this being a committed thing that I am doing for it. And as I even say that, I have like kind of tears of happiness well up in the back of my eyes with the recognition and the knowing, because it's just so beautiful, It's like my inner self knows that I got this now, you know? And it took us a while, and it's okay. We were going to get here eventually. So I'm going to put these in groups of 2 to signify the choices, okay? So these don't necessarily have to mean what they meant for my reading in order for you to choose them. Okay? There'll be 4 picks. So these are coming out in groups of 2. Like this is the first pick, this is the second pick, third pick, fourth pick. So use your own intuition to decide which of these picks will have a message for you to reflect on. And we're looking at how your inner self feels about the level of attentiveness being given by your outer self. Okay? Let's get into it. Hi, pick 1. First of all, while I dig into this bucket, I'm hearing this song by The Fray, Don't Let Me Go. So it's just maybe like a message from your inner self to your outer self, like some things we don't talk about. Pisces, square. There's a little bit of tension in there that's not really identified yet, and it might have to do with how you're seen by the world, your reputation, or your standing at work. And I think that you are honoring your position in all of this, right? Like if it's difficult, you're honoring that for yourself. What does pick 1's inner self feel about the level of care? You may be more caring about what you look like outside of yourself. Maybe you have negotiated with your inner self to kind of quiet some discomfort down and said, yeah, I will get to that. I have to do this first, kind of thing. Your inner self is looking for either appreciating the level of groundedness you have or looking for more groundedness. Some things we don't talk about. Don't let me go. Don't let me go. Okay, there's something here has been cleared that had to do with a past life connection. So there's a karmic pattern that has been cleared, and your inner self is recognizing that, saying we shone a light on a pattern that wasn't serving us from a past life. We learned all we had to learn, so now by honoring that process that you went through and the difficult feelings that you were feeling, you were able to clear that. And that is being seen by the outside world. Your inner self is appreciating the opportunities you give it for expressing creatively. And your inner self is also recognizing that you may be a bit stubborn and holding on to certain ways of navigating. You have a fixed view. Look, we've got Taurus and Scorpio. These are opposing energies on the zodiac, and one has to do with digging deep under the surface, and the other is very much more selfish and self-absorbed a bit, maybe in one way of looking at it. That's the feeling I'm getting when it comes to this reading. So it's like some things we don't talk about. Okay, so look at the reasons why you felt the need to kind of put yourself first. And it's not saying it's bad, it's just that there's something under the surface keeping you in a certain view, right? So now that you cleared this one thing, something else is there to be seen. Dream bigger. Your inner self has bigger dreams than you have allowed for it yet. So all this is saying is, like, your inner self is saying, yeah, we're making progress. You're doing great. Yes, you're still worried about what's outside of you and how you're being seen a bit. But I do appreciate that you've been doing some work here for us. And also, there's something else that you could notice about how you're operating in a very stubborn way. Look below the surface of why you're doing that. And perhaps kind of lighten up on that a bit, like change something in the equation. Because there's something even bigger that you can't see because you're operating within a comfort zone, right? You're trying to keep yourself safe with this stubbornness. Okay, so, but it doesn't mean it was wrong for while you had it, right? Your inner self is recognizing that this is just part of you, and it's trying to bring your attention to this part of you because it feels like you've learned what you can from that. And that song, that lyric keeps coming up, some things we don't talk about. So it's something where you weren't allowed to, or you're programmed not to address this. So that's why it's going to be in the subconscious and require a little bit of digging. Okay? All right. Remember, this is just information to reflect on, and I'm going to move on to pick 2. Hi, pick 2. What does your inner self want to acknowledge about the attentiveness of your outer self? So we got breakthrough, and perhaps this had to do with a parting of ways. We also have an ending here. So something came to an end, which caused you to break through to some other possibilities, right? Once you end a cycle, it opens up other options. Boy, I love that about life. You listened to your doubt, and it is so, your inner self is, I feel relief, like I feel a release of tears too. Like your inner self was wanting you to listen, maybe even for as long as 7 to 8 months, to some doubts that it just tried to bring to your attention, but you did listen. And maybe you just felt stuck and stagnant in a position that you were in before this breakthrough. There was maybe like, you could have been stuck in a pattern of looking for the kind of relationship that you had with your father. Remaining in a cycle that had to do with the kind of relating that was ingrained in you from childhood. Or also, you could have just felt like there were too many roots keeping you where you were. Like there was so much that had to be uprooted in order to make the change that, you put it off for a while. But this was such a big thing. And this allowed for you to start seeing a lot of things from a much bigger place. And having this level of awareness is taking practice, and your inner self is acknowledging that you have allowed your emotions to start flowing, and that you're practicing how to stay balanced and even with those, and how to be attentive to those. Philia is like brotherly love, brotherhood, friendship, and we've got listen to doubt. So there may have been some friendships where you had to listen to some doubts that you were having. Maybe you didn't want to see what you had to see. And if that wasn't the case, then it may be the case now. It's something to look at. It's just a past life karma that you're actually clearing up. And you may be getting a lot of signs and symbols that kind of point to it, right? Like just watching movies that have the same theme, or getting poked in the place where that, particular issue comes up again. Not with just one person, but more than one person. Something is trying to get your attention to any doubts that you may have about anything, because you're actually upgrading your whole life. This breakthrough was huge. And when I say huge, it's like Your inner self is recognizing that you have a higher calling, and your inner self is on board with not only recognizing it, but doing what it takes to release anything that's in the way of living it. And so things that don't seem to correlate, they might seem spooky, but actually everything is working towards your benefit of seeing things for what they really are and breaking free from any pattern, not just the ones you already have, but there's more to let go of. And that's why it's like practice. It's like, yes, the way you did that, you're going to just keep doing it. Let go of anything that's kind of feeling like doubt, fear, limits, right? Because you're actually here for something much more, and this is the time for you to keep taking steps, to leave the past behind, really. Okay? And this is, I believe, your inner self is like happy to talk to you about this so that you can feel reassured that this is what's happening, that even though there may be a grieving process with endings, that it's not wrong, that this is what needed to happen, this is the time for it to happen, and that it is going to a place that it's meant for you. A place that you will have like-minded souls, and yeah. I'll end it there. Remember, this is information to reflect on. And I'm going to end your reading there. Hey, pick 3. I'm just doing a little clearing before we continue. And I'm clearing in the bucket too. Okay. So we're looking for information to reflect on, messages from your inner self on how it feels about the level of attentiveness from your outer self. Listen to fear. I think you have been listening to your fears. Your inner self feels like you're working together now. Your inner self feels like you're allowing time to follow your passions. You're able to open your view, keep an open mind, and look at things from a bigger picture view, a different look at the same information through a different window. You may be embodying spiritual ideals and practices. Your inner self knows that you're on the precipice of another big breakthrough, and you're going forward with lots of wisdom gained. There is an element of unknown in the path forward that your inner self is recognizing, that you're perhaps having some fear about, but also dealing with any fear that comes up. Your inner self is recognizing that you may be looking at projections in your partnerships where you're having to deal with either women or men that you feel lustful towards, that you feel magnetically drawn, tied karmically, or you're projecting darker traits onto, feeling like a lot of like power struggle or play coming through in the partnerships. So maybe you're learning about the truth of that, like where that attraction comes from, why it's there, things like that. Your inner self is recognizing that there's a level of movement needed, and maybe if there is a lot of movement in your life right now, it's recognizing that that is something that is beneficial. especially to you seeing things from another point of view. You're starting to just make changes, throw sticks in the spoke, so to speak, stepping out of your comfort zone in all kinds of ways, and allowing yourself to feel different things. Once you see it from a different way, you feel a different way about it. And so this is also affecting your self-expression. I think you're getting more confident in how you express yourself. Look at that, more mystery. Wow. Wow, wow. So your inner self doesn't know everything, right? And that's not a bad thing. Because what you've been trying to do, your inner self is recognizing that you've been trying to clean yourself out, right? So that you're light as a feather. That the past is not haunting you, the future is not something you're fearing, that you're able to be in the present moment, that you're able to be present with your body, moving your body, following your passions, and moving towards what is compatible with you. So in partnerships, whatever you're learning, you're also learning about your compatibility. Where there's fear, you're addressing that fear. Beautiful. Okay, pick 3. This is information to reflect on. And I'm going to end your reading there. Okay, pick 4. What does your inner self feel about the level of attentiveness from your outer self? So I think your inner self is noticing that your outer self is willing to see the truth, has been looking at more truths over the last month's time. Your inner self is recognizing its new role in that it has importance, right? Your inner self is seeing that there is a lot of completion going on in your life, meaning you're completing cycles, you're seeing things through. These are the experiences that you are meant to have here on earth. Your inner self is recognizing that you feel drawn in maybe more than one direction. You have options. There was perhaps a difficult truth that you needed to come to terms with, and you were able to do so. You accepted it, and it had to do with your incompatibility in a certain situation. So I think you put yourself in a new role in that situation, given the fact that there was incompatibility. Your inner self is recognizing that there may still be a part of you that feels jaded because it didn't work out the way you wanted, and this was a difficult pill to swallow. Okay, maybe you need to communicate about an ending, or communicate about what the new role is. Like, I think in order to help you move through the jadedness, a conversation may allow both parties to air something that will be helpful. Yeah, you'd gain clarity through having a conversation, okay? So if this isn't a situation where you can actually have a conversation with somebody, then write a letter that you're not going to send. And so after you write it, you will see things from a different perspective, because it'll just make room for you to see more and to make sense of what you have there. Right now there's a lot of passion kind of pulling at you and kind of stirring that fire, and it's making it hard to see clearly. I do think you do know you have options, though. Spiritually, you have options. Like, in your imagination, in the ethers, what you're imagining, right, you can bring that to reality. You'll have to ground it yourself, though, right? It's an option to ground it. It's not going to just happen for you. You have to take some action to ground what it is that you choose. So maybe that's going to be easier to do after you gain some clarity after a conversation. Okay? Yeah. You need some more light on a situation. There's not enough light on it to see it completely. Yeah. Understood. Free will, air, communication, reprogram, Maria, and creation. Yeah. Okay, so it would take an understanding and to use your free will to create this into reality. And maybe there's a part of you that is jaded from something else not working out, so that you don't think that you can do it, or you don't think it'll work out, right? So you're not taking the steps. But in actuality, there's a possibility to have something that's very high vibrational and much more suited to you. But right now, you're running on the program that says that's not possible, that you're incompatible, or that you're jaded because of an incompatibility that you've already lived through. You're not willing to have a conversation that would clear things up. And until you do, things will remain unclear, and you will be kind of just in this kind of cycle of needing completion but not being able to complete it. Okay, so you're in process here. Nothing's gone wrong. It's just like your inner self is like saying, yeah, like, we're going through a lot right now. It's a big thing, and I feel like your inner self feels really held and understands that this is difficult, and does want you to see, and is glad that you're having this perspective kind of shown to you through these cards, because it's like a little bit more clear, perhaps looking at it in the steps that would need to be taken, right? Which is to have a conversation, or to write a letter that you don't send, to kind of let it go, to clear the air, and then use your free will to create and ground a new creation of what you choose out of what you're being tantalized by into being. And it's something that you have to do, and that you won't choose to do until you deal with this old thing that is complete, but there's still a little bit of residue of like resentment or, jadedness here. And the jadedness is like maybe just a fear that it would happen again that way, that you would get hurt again, or that it wouldn't work out, or that you'd be disappointed. But actually you learned something from that other situation, and I think through a conversation or through the letter that you don't send, when you see it kind of spelled out, you'll be able to pick out at least the things that you did learn. Okay, I know we're really going into depth here, but you're protected. You're protected as you go through this. Like nothing's gone wrong here. And even when you go into a new situation to create something new and ground it, once you heal your heart of the old situation, now you are a person who knows how to heal your heart. So then your heart feels much more protected when it goes into a new situation, right? So it's just like kind of cleaning up the last bit of residues of a broken heart. Okay? So you did the hard part, which was that you accepted the truth of what it was. The loving yourself through the hurt, that's, it's all up to you. You can do it. You know you're worth it. Okay? Alright, pick 4. This is information to reflect on. Thank you for spending your time with me. Perhaps we'll see you in the next one.